The problem I usually have with podcasting as an industry is I think podcasters don't think of their podcast as a full-scale, fully-fledged media product. Like, they don't see it like as a media product. So what he does, if you watch Behind the Diary, is he takes a tablet, puts it under the table, and the AI is constantly recording the interview between him and his guest and highlighting the bit. So if he hears a bit that might be good for a thumbnail, he presses a button and AI highlights it. So he's interviewing, it's an AI-driven interview.
The more AI-delivered podcasts we have, especially on the content front and the actual voices being used, whether they're deep fakes or they're audio reconstructions, we need a tool to check.
Whether it's a propaganda tool.
But then also, who decides the rules? That's an ethical issue.
Who will watch the watcher? That is the question, because there's a particular AI that's able to edit footage from cameras like in real time. So you say channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, this is the footage that we have, and the AI will actually create a podcast episode with all of the shots and align them perfectly.
When Instagram introduced the stories, most people actually spend a lot more time on Instagram stories than on Instagram itself. They didn't expect people to fall in love with stories, but they did. And what happens, because they're very short, and now we have less attention as people.
Imagine that. Imagine shooting a podcast with an AI guest.
This is Mind and Machine, unlocking the potential of AI in Africa. Welcome back. And on this episode, we are talking about this very thing that we are doing here, podcasting and artificial intelligence. I'd like to welcome our guest. All our guests you're all familiar with, Oscar. Welcome back to the show.
Always a pleasure to be in Mind and Machine. We are machines with minds, and
we are
podcasting or minds with machines. So we're podcasting today, and it's really, really exciting to be here.
Yeah. So we spoke about this topic briefly, but it was more of a revelation that came to you, and then it was like, all right, let's collaborate on this whole concept of podcast and artificial intelligence.
Yes. How did
it come to you? Sort of that background.
So I'll start off with what I do outside of obviously the financial stuff that we talked about before. The thing I do is I run a podcast called mantalk.ke. It's one of the largest and most followed podcasts in Africa.
Yes.
And we focus our topics on masculinity and basically growing as young men and young people and young human beings in a changing African society.
Yeah.
We managed to take that from a barbershop in Ruaka to do shoots in London, and we're very proud of that. It's something that my team and I are very proud of. There's a team member at the back now, Jerry. Shout out to Jerry. And the podcasting for me has been a passion. It's been a source of joy. It's been a source of enlightenment. I've gotten to converse with some extremely interesting people throughout my life just because of it. And I think that artificial intelligence will also allow us to elevate the level of our conversations and the level of our thinking when it comes to producing podcasts and other media products here in Africa.
I like the fact that you said it's going to elevate. And I think the first thing for me when you brought up this topic, first thing that came to my mind was using artificial intelligence to translate into multiple dialects.
Yes.
So, of course, a lot of work to get these dialects into machine readable and train AI to understand the 3,000 plus dialects that exist in Africa. But then that means you have a wider audience, and your message has reached, whether your message is educative, informative, comical. It's always good to have a nice laugh.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. In fact, I'll even tell you this, right? There's an AI company that I'm actually talking to, and one of the problems we are solving is we're trying to transcribe some of the notes that we have into, different languages, but also we're trying to create an AI personality, where it's like, can we create an AI agent that has been derived from the scripts and manuscripts of our episodes, where it's like, that sounds like Oscar.
Are you trying to introduce a third member to mantalk.ke?
Listen, how clever would it be? How clever would it be if we suddenly took AI and then we created constructs of myself and my co-host Eli, and then we kind of gave them different names, but they're similarly engaged, right? And then we take that product, right?
Yeah.
And then turn it into an actual, let's say, WhatsApp chatbot or something, where if you have questions about the episode, questions about ideas, questions about life, we have a product that sounds like us, even shares, I'd even say, a little bit of our biases. And then drop that
because
as a
you want it
product.
to be as authentically close to you as possible. So it will have your biases.
Exactly. So that's the idea. Where it's like, how would we engage our audiences and our communities with that?
You know what that's just given me?
Yeah.
Podcast on demand. So I would go to whatever platform my podcast is. I'm like, I want an episode based off of XYZ books, like Hekaya za Bunwasi.
Okay.
But I want Eli and Oscar
to narrate it
for me.
Yeah.
I've got my episode.
You have now think about that application for audiobooks. I can take that and say, okay, we want chapter 1 of The River Between, narrated by Oscar. Whew, there it is. Done. And AI can do that. And for me, I own the rights to that particular bot. And so I can do voiceovers.
Yeah.
Like I can put out 1,000 voiceovers a day.
As someone who loves audiobooks more than the reading because of my dyslexia, I actually find a situation where if I could get, because most recent book I was reading was Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey.
And he actually narrates. It's actually very,
he's the one who's narrating the book.
Exactly.
And I tend to find books, and when also previously to that was Essentialism.
Wow.
And it was actually the same, the author was
Essentialism, what's that about?
It's about doing more with less.
Okay.
So basically, it's a very good book, actually. It'll change your life. So it's saying no to good opportunities and only saying yes to the great opportunities.
I need to read that.
You need to read that, yeah. So it even says, like, you create your to-do list and you always, like, striking things off your to-do list. That's like running on a treadmill. You're just running in one place. So he explains how to become an essential leader, how to become an essentialist and you live your life, and even gives his own examples. And this was him narrating his own book. That made me feel closer. Other books I've listened to, and it's a different voice, not the author's voice. And you may sometimes have actually heard the author speaking. So the book feels strange to me.
Yeah.
But now with this whole concept, I can actually get all my books with all my authors. I just need a few samples of their voices.
Yeah.
Put it in there, and it works. Actually, one of those books, not essential, and there's actually one book in particular that I don't remember. It wasn't essentialism, but I'll try and remember throughout the podcast.
Yeah.
They were so good that even where he was quoting other people, he got those people to read the things he quoted them on.
I actually read. So you see, that's the thing I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Like, AI for podcasting can be used to create other media products. Like most people, the problem I usually have with podcasting as an industry is I think podcasters don't think of their podcast as a full-scale, fully-fledged media product. Like they don't see it like as a media product. I need a trailer. I need, for example, like you're seeing, we're doing podcasting, a vlogcast where we're doing, that's a nice one, vlogcast. I'll keep that. We're doing, I'll keep that. Jerry's our guy who making vlogcasts. So we're doing a vlogcast.
Yeah.
We're doing, we're trying to pitch our podcast to even, I'd say, TV stations and syndicate that. So, all these different ideas around like creating an actual media product from your podcast and making it like valuable and making sure that the IP is stretched as long and as far as it can to create the value it needs to. I don't think that that's something that we think of a lot as Africans, because like media as an industry has kind of stagnated in creating original, fun and firm content at low costs. So low valuation productions are not necessarily out as often as they should be. And we as Kenyans have kind of, or me as podcasters, I feel like it's taken away from the innovation. We just want to sit down and talk. But once we apply AI, it takes us into a whole other realm where it's like, how do we engage with the audiences that we have? Like, for example, your idea of reading a book and having someone else's voice read that book. Yeah. Imagine us other scenarios where we can use our voice innovatively to come up with exciting new products that our audiences might be able to use and enjoy. Yeah. Off of what we want and off of what AI has learned out of us. So that's something I think is an application of AI that I'm really, really excited to see. And I'd even want to pioneer, and I'm in the middle of conversations that might allow us to do that. I think the question now is funding and how I'll be able to make sure that we don't go too hungry.
Yeah.
Because we are mad scientists. But that's the first, I'd say, application. The second one, I think that would be really, really good to talk about is how AI is being used by podcasters to actually curate social media content in real time. I don't know if you've seen Stephen Bartlett. Stephen Bartlett runs Diary of a CEO podcast. Stephen Bartlett is a serial entrepreneur, a genius at marketing and a genius at solving problems, like solving particularly complex problems through innovative solutions. And AI has been his thing. So what he does, if you watch Behind the Diary, is he takes a tablet, puts it under the table, and the AI is constantly recording the interview between him and his guest and highlighting the bits. So if he hears a bit that might be good for a thumbnail, he presses a button and AI highlights it. So AI then generates, so that goes to his team, and then his team starts to generate images based off of what the guest has just said that might actually have high value online. And like they can research and say, oh, he said this really interesting point. And like he can double down on it. And he gets real-time feedback off of his conversation and off of the internet as to what actually would work for him and the guest in the moment. So he's interviewing, it's an AI-driven interview. So like, crap. Man's a multimillionaire, has a lot. But like, you can imagine if he commercialized that for me as someone who's a podcaster, that's already a product that I'd buy.
Yeah, there's really such a product that I don't remember the name. I saw it, I think maybe, should be last week. It wasn't that long ago. So what it does is same thing. It transcribes, and then it says, okay, this will be turned into an Instagram post. This will be turned into a LinkedIn post. It will be turned into a Twitter post. This will be turned into this. It creates them.
What?
And then you just publish. And it's only like, I think, $20. It was $20, I think, a month.
How much is it?
$20 a month.
What's the name of the thing?
I'll check. I have it saved somewhere on my phone.
Crap.
Yeah, so you can imagine you don't have to sit down and create your Twitter post, your this post. And that actually helps. You see, once you start automating the hard part for content creators like podcasters.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you say something and you're like, that's going to go on Twitter to promote the episode. You don't remember it, or the person who's capturing it captures, maybe changes one or two words, and it could easily change the meaning.
Yeah.
And you're there, and it's been posted as we are talking, having these conversations. A human is posting this. Yeah. There could be some error, or like if you're at a press briefing and someone is there and they're like, oh, he said this, this, and this, and they sort of, they heard it. I mean, maybe something distracted them, so they paraphrase what you said, and it could change their meaning. Because sometimes I've felt that where I've seen tweets about things I've said during a conference, like when you're at the end of the day, you're like, posted 6 hours ago, you're like, oh, they posted this when I was talking, and they're like, no, you missed this and this word. No, it just sounds bad.
Yeah.
Because it actually once happened where someone called me out and is like, why are you hating on crypto? I was like, I'm not hating on crypto. It's like, oh, I saw the tweet where you said, I'm like, the tweet was not written correctly. I was actually saying that we need to worry about the climate impact of technology that uses a lot of high compute. So like we should focus on green energy around that space. I wasn't saying death to crypto and crypto is bad. I was actually even not talking about crypto specifically. I was talking about large distributed ledgers.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wish, and the AI could actually solve that issue for you. So you would even be doing your podcast recording as we're recording now. And before people hear this in a couple of days or in a week, there are tweets going out, their Instagram posts going out as trailers and teasers to the upcoming episode with sort of not live, but just recently recorded footage. And that actually expands.
I'll tell you the truth, right? I really like that solution because for me, it saves a ton of money out of my season budget, right? Because we have to hire social media managers to be able to put out and keep audiences engaged. For us, that investment is the largest investment we made in our podcast because in constantly engaging the community is something that's both a factor of time and money. Because you have to keep your audiences constantly engaged. As of the recording of this podcast, I haven't. We are recycling a team, so we are rethinking the whole team. And one of the problems that we'd have is our social media managers sometimes are not good at understanding trends. Now, if you're giving me an AI that's able to scout the internet for what's trending now online and able to create contextual posts that also have that competence backend and that finger on the pulse of the internet as to, oh, this is trending now. This is what I'd recommend you say or you talk about on your show.
Or even just finding, oh, this is trending now, but you spoke about it 9 months
Yeah.
ago. It's now relevant. Let me
yeah.
pick that old post,
Put it
back.
But yeah, but yes, of course that.
Yeah.
But also in the sense of when you're editing, right? A lot goes into editing a reel, for example. You have to pick, like, for example, now Mwaki is slapping. Dun, 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 dun. So if AI is able to know, oh, that sound goes really, really well. Or Ma Sheri, dun, dun, Ma Sheri Coco, the one for Bien.
Yeah.
Bien's album's about to drop. There's this sound that he's produced. I want to edit a reel using that sound, put that in, and then, jump cuts is the thing these days. Jump cuts maintains attention for what, 15 to 20 more seconds more than just normal transitions.
Yeah.
Put that in, and AI is able to do that for me. It makes my job as somebody who's running a media product extremely efficient, because it means that I'm able to, like, just churn out a content plan in a second or 20 minutes. Another thing that I just also wanted to make an observation on is AI and editing. There's a particular AI that's able to edit footage from cameras, like in real time. So you say channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, this is the footage that we have, and the AI will actually create a podcast episode with all of the shots and align them perfectly.
Wow.
So you can imagine, so that takes away again but obviously it depends on your production eye, how much value you really, because for us, I cannot move without Beryl, who's my producer. Like, if Beryl doesn't touch my footage, I'll know. I know Beryl. I know how Beryl shoots, and I know how she edits. If
It's a sort of signature.
Yeah.
There's a signature. There's a style.
And let me tell you something.
Yeah.
If it changes,
Yeah.
I'll know. If she has someone else assigned to that task,
Yeah.
I'll know, and she'll have to tell us, because we'll say, Beryl, this is not your work.
Yeah.
And like for that's why I think AI might have that little bit of like a negative, where it's like, if it's not able to create highly natural or
Nothing that looks too synthetic.
nothing that looks too synthetic, that's real production value.
Yeah.
It'll also kind of, wouldn't, but then there'll be a generation of people who wouldn't know the difference. I hope you know that.
There would be, actually. So I saw this news clip about kids in the UK and YouTube and AI-generated content. And what happened was, as these kids are watching different shows on YouTube, eventually they end up on now AI-generated content becomes what's been recommended.
Yeah.
So they start off with like a science thing. Eventually they're being told, oh, the pyramids are actually just covered in stone by a very thin layer. They're actually magnets that were put here by aliens, and this, and this, and this. And they talk to those kids like, so you've spent 3 hours on YouTube, what have you learned? Oh, the pyramids were built by aliens. Or other kids were like, there was one video that was really interesting. I didn't believe in aliens, but it was very convincing. Some kids are like, that voice sounded funny and robotic, but it taught us a lot. Now you start seeing, now that's the danger of now. Like, there's so much content that AI could easily make garbage content that is hard to filter out. Because this is on YouTube Kids, and there's a bit of it shows that there's even a struggle for YouTube itself to handle those, like, to filter out all that AI-generated content. But there's something you said I want to go back to when you said attention. And you said, the jump shot allows you to gain 15, 17 more seconds attention of someone. And that just reminded me, we are right now in this AI age because of the 2019 paper, attention is all you need. And so it's helping AIs consume larger tokens, and actually...
Really?
Yeah, that was the paper. That was the Google paper that actually introduced transformers and made them the big thing. That's why we have all of these generative AIs, because the paper, attention is all you need. And now we're in a society and a generation where instant gratification is all we need. Long-winded content, this 1 hour podcast I'm doing, doesn't have that mainstream large audience. We've seen for example, when Instagram introduced the stories, most people actually spend a lot more time on Instagram stories than on Instagram itself. They didn't expect people to fall in love with stories, but they did. And what happens, because they're very short, and now we have less attention as people. So now AI might help us either cram, as in condense content to suit people's attention, to suit that bias of instant gratification. It could do that, or it could make it worse and even shorten it even further to the point where we won't even want to consume anything informative that's more than 30 seconds. YouTube right now, you hit skip ad after it just tells you can skip ad, you skip the ad. Unless that ad within those 5 seconds captures you to finish watching it, for you to be able to click it and maybe...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. If those first 5 seconds, you're not hooked. You're not going to stay
it's
hooked.
the same thing with YouTube, right? Like,
Yeah.
as an algorithm, and this was actually something we were talking about previously. I don't know if I had mentioned where I was telling you, put out the YouTube and the Spotify at the same time.
Yeah.
The YouTube content is boosted by a particular algorithm.
Yeah.
And even for us, we've reformatted our episodes. I need to actually, today's the day I need to check the edit. Just after this shoot, that's what I'll be doing on my way home. And what we've had to do as a team is completely discombobulate the episodes as they normally were used to. And for us, we realized the more condensed the value we give, we'd rather give segments, the higher the probability we'll retain our audiences. Because you will find that there's a peak in engagement if you do certain things. So it's like, oh, there's this, so it's like there's this peak in engagement, and YouTube will show you that peak.
Yeah.
Or this is the place where everybody disengaged, or this is the place where, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you get to actually see that in the few minutes. Mr. Beast is the master at doing it. He uses different techniques, scale, where he'll put a thumbnail where it's like you see a big fat island and he's like, oh my god, or you see money.
This is a never-ending giant mountain of cash.
And as much cash as you can carry, you can keep. I don't care if you put it in your pockets, in your hoodie, in your pants, in your shoes.
When do I go?
Now.
Now?
It starts now.
Oh my.
So like that consistent buy-in, and those techniques that allow you to retain your viewers and to retain engagement are what AI would actually be running off of. And they're like, listen, the YouTube algorithm favors that your intro, like, you know what you've done now is, good morning, welcome, da-da-da. The AI hates it.
Yeah.
Like the YouTube algorithm hates it. It likes you to start immediately because it means there's no drop off.
Oh,
You get what I mean? It's
start with the content.
start with your content, get on with your show. Yeah, so you get what I mean? So like there's all these little things that AI can be able to assist us to kind of know as best practice and implement for our content. I do agree that there's a risk that it'll skew towards our biases, like the jump cuts and the transitions. But nonetheless, I think there's also a space for us as human beings to go, AI might recommend shorter and shorter, but I don't feel engaged. Emotionally, I'm not connected to this. And that's where I think human curation comes in, where it's like, I liked that transition, but it's cut out something important. Keep that.
Another thing it could do, and more on an inclusion thing, is the people who have speech impairments or are not comfortable, like engaging in conversations.
Yeah, wow.
The shy people. So let's say you have a stammer. You give the AI a few samples of your voice, tell it to fix my stammer, and you give it a script. And now you're a content creator.
I'd even say it might fix it in post.
Oh yeah, you could also fix it in post.
It'll fix it in post. Because like if I might empathize that you stammer, but maybe the audience won't.
Yeah.
But in post, it won't show that you have a stammer.
Yeah.
That would be, I think that's...
And
I
even
think
for...
let's make that. That's another... That's a few million.
Yeah.
Sounds like a few $1 million there.
There are startup ideas coming up.
Yeah. Or even being able to communicate in Braille, like a Braille scripted podcast where like the blind can also, or sign language.
Yeah. Because that would fix... I know there's that funny clip of some state in the US, some police station, were using some lady to do the sign language.
Yeah.
And apparently she was not doing sign language. So it's actually people who are watching who knew sign language are like, what the hell is she signing?
Yeah.
And eventually, so they kept calling the police station to be like, your person during press briefings who is signing
is doing nothing.
Just throwing their arms around, Wu-Tang signs, gang signs or something.
My country embarrasses me all the time. That's so crazy.
So they eventually went and found out, and apparently she walked in, said she's here for a job to be the sign language interpreter or whatever. They didn't interview her to test her skills. She just showed off her Naruto skills, and there she landed the job. So you could imagine
she
now.
Put everybody in a zangetsu.
Yeah. So now this also now, if AI can actually now help create accessibility. Actually, that's the word that
Yeah.
AI can do for content creation.
It's crazy.
Is accessibility.
Wow.
And it's accessibility in creation and accessibility, like you said, in post. In post, I may have such a serious speech impediment that it may actually physically be painful for me to have this conversation for 1 hour. I may keep running out of breath, my throat may be real. So I'm like, well, I shouldn't use my voice too much because I'd lose it, but I've trained an AI to have my exact voice.
Yeah.
Now I just need to write a script that it doesn't need to follow word by word, but it has some creativity, some space.
Yeah, it's amazing. I
to
think
play around with. And
I think that's a really good idea.
you have you have a persona that's you.
Yeah.
And now this is a persona that you could actually use in terms of now generating income, where now you could receive 10 scripts in a day.
Yeah.
It'll churn out. It'll churn out the content for your 10 episodes in minutes.
Mm-hmm. It could. You could use an AI persona, but I feel like for podcasting, I wouldn't use that. Mm-hmm. I'd rather, like I said, deal with it in post where you yourself are talking and you're engaging, because I feel like podcasts are personal. Like,
they're personal,
they're
but
personal.
You're looking at people, or it's the people who actually can't talk. You see, there's an opportunity to also do it post and in production where
I get it.
I feel like I have something to say, but I'm a mute, and maybe AI can help figure out what my voice could have been like.
Oof.
And then now,
dude.
For example, I know I'm a very bad singer, but what if AI could figure out if I learned how to sing? When I sing, it sounds like I'm talking.
Shit's your boy. I'd be like Jay-Z.
I'd be trying to compete with Adele and all these singers who go really high with the tones.
But don't you think it takes away from art a little bit?
So there's actually an episode we talked about this, AI and art, and I could argue for me, it's allowing me to express myself in a form of expression which I was never capable of. Think of it as you could be a very good artist, a painter, but you've never, ever gotten the opportunity to get that brush and that paint.
Yeah.
Now AI has come.
Yeah.
It's the brush and the paint.
Then you tell it to paint.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think what would be wrong is where you exploit it.
And then you say it's you who painted.
You say it's you who painted. Because you could actually say, I have a desire and I appreciate podcasts, but I'm too shy to talk, or I'm physically challenged. And so I've used AI to create this voice and to do this, but it's my thoughts that I'm giving the AI, and it's creating that. I'd actually feel a sense of connection to that person who has that podcast. I'd be like, okay, the voice may sound a bit robotic, but it's actually creating accessibility. Now he has a voice.
Of course, yeah.
Or she has a voice.
I see what you're saying. Well, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away from the originality.
Yeah.
There's another question I have for you about AI and podcasting that I wanted to hear. Imagine an AI guest. Imagine that. Imagine shooting a podcast with an AI guest.
I think I'll shoot with, now that ChatGPT, with the GPTs which are out.
Yeah.
I think I should give it a go.
Then you just put an audio.
Give it a few notes.
And give it a voice. And then and then you're like, hey, this is a question I have about podcasting. I think that podcasting in Africa is gonna. I'd be lit. I'd listen to
and
that.
you keep challenging it. You're like, I think that's a misconception. That's a bias.
Is it? I apologize. Yeah, that would be fun.
It would be interesting.
It would be fun.
Actually, it would be. I think we'll probably do it for one of my episodes. I'll have 2 different bots join me.
Another interesting thing AI might probably do in the area of podcasting is, I think when it comes to topic selection, right, and co-producing your content for you or with you. I think there's a lot of solo podcasters who have a story to tell and don't have the education, I'd say, when it comes to actually producing a video or producing a podcast or producing a script. And AI coming in play to actually like provide you with information saying, listen, and successful AI podcasts do this, we're going to do it. Or this topic is currently trending in the AI community around the world, talk about it. Or if you're saying that this is a problem you've seen in society, you, off of your consistency and depth, we think this is what would work for you. This is, like coming up with podcast concepts that you can be able to execute individually or with a team, I think would be amazing.
Yeah, because it's helping you the research to know
Exactly.
what's going to be my next topic or what's trending.
Exactly.
That would be, because that okay, especially where you're looking at news based. For example, like just what goes on in AI. Like for example, I think I read about 6 articles in the morning, just to know, like, and that's just on a news perspective. Some of them are nice because they just give you like 3-minute summaries.
Yeah.
Others you have to read long content. Others they're very short. Then there's a link to a PDF. It's a research paper. It's 90 pages. I'm like, okay, when am I gonna read this? And so that goes into your backlog.
Yeah.
But you can imagine now having AI tell you, okay, these are the 10 things. It's the 10 news that are broken out about artificial intelligence. These are the ones which are trending.
Now in sports.
Yeah, this is what is trending. This is what's relevant as per your content. Because it could be something trending. Let's say, could have been the outage for ChatGPT. That was last week on Wednesday. And I would be like, I don't think I'd cover that. I'd be like, well, I'm trying to
It's
get...
good to know, but I don't
It's
think
good to know.
yeah.
It will be covered, I guess, in the US and Europe. Africa is a net consumer of these tools, and maybe like 24% traffic the last time I checked. So Africa, 24% traffic, and I still feel there's accessibility. There's not democratization of AI yet. So this outage doesn't really hurt most people.
It doesn't.
So it's not, I think, a news that I would put on my podcast talking about AI in Africa. But then now there's a concept of now when they did their developer conference thing, and they showed that now they're creating this thing called GPTs, where even if you have because previously if you wanted to make an application, what we used to call, people call them GPT wrappers, I just call them thin wrappers. They just get an API connection, get a nice looking website, and I've built a financial education tool, I've built a lawyer. Eventually you give it the right prompt, tell you, I am ChatGPT 3.5 by OpenAI. But now but you see those people, you need the technical skills for that. Right now, with the GPTs coming out, you don't need the technical skills. So anyone can build. And what I'm doing is finally, I can now teach people how to prompt, because you don't need the coding skills. You just go and tell it, I want to build this, and this. And it'll help you build it, and then you export what you need to export, and you publish it as your site or your service or whatever. And I'm like, that actually has an impact I can see in Africa in terms of people have ideas for web services that they can offer or solutions on the internet. I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go through my foundation. I'm going to educate people on using these GPTs so that they can create some income in their lives. And I can see, okay, that's news, and I can say that translates to Africa. So the AI should be able to tell me that's news, and this news belongs on your podcast because there's a touch point to your core theme. Like my core theme is unlocking the potential of AI in Africa. So it does that. It's like, this works.
This works within the
so it actually
paradigms of
it will start curating for you.
It will.
Relevant topics.
That is what I'm saying.
You won't have a topic that goes offbeat, and like
It won't.
everyone is like, did they change?
And that's the hardest. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying a co-producer AI is so useful, because the hardest thing you can do to make your content is to make it relevant, to make it accessible, and to make it, I'd say, exciting. Yeah. That you yourself as a producer are excited to actually do the actual work. Yeah. And to hold the conversation. So it has to align your interests, global interests, and interests on any potential guests. Yeah. Because you have to find the right person to talk about these things. So I think AI has its use cases there, like you've said. Another use case I'd say for podcasting would be commercial viability. There's a lot of small brands, little businesses that are looking to promote their products in a very cost-efficient way using the right voices. If AI could somehow come in as a commercial tool to now assist you, yes, it's assisted you to produce, but it's also assisting you to find clients to sponsor your episodes. So it's like, hey, my name's Roger AI, and I'm a podcast tool. We talk about AI here in Africa. Your name is Fingo app or Little Pesa. and you are interested in savings as a service, or you sell microfinance products, or you sell A or B or Y, we think that your product would be a good fit for our podcast, and that matching service would do a world of good for content creators. Because here in Africa, the problem with content creation is that it's altogether unsustainable as a business unless you have a pipeline of clients coming through the door to actually help you run it.
You need a huge pipeline.
Yeah.
Because eventually, if the pipeline is too short, it'll only get you so far. It could get you 10 episodes or a season or a few months worth of production, and after that
you're back in on ice.
You're back chasing, trying to look for so there's a commercial aspect AI could play.
And its value there it's undeniable.
I thought of something, immortality.
Okay.
For your podcast, when you said you could have the chat, you could have your voice and Eli's voice and speak on certain topics, and maybe
with our biases.
With your biases.
Yeah.
Now you could imagine, you decide, it gets to a time when you decide, I want to focus on your kids or your family, or it's a change in life, but the community does not want you to get rid of the podcast. So the show never stops.
No, it doesn't.
It can continue.
Now you've understood.
This is not the ending of it.
Now you've seen exactly why I am thinking that way.
Yeah.
The game never ends. And you see, the thing that podcasters sell the most is time. Time is what we sell the most. Even this moment we're speaking right now.
Yeah.
It's time. It's time we've set aside 2 hours or an hour or so to have a very healthy conversation around our industry and how AI can help us get to that next level. And, if AI is able to save our time, it means that you can go back to actually researching on AI and having the industry impact, and you can update your AI every week.
Yeah.
And the AI agent just keeps sharing that perspective.
Could actually even help you with the thing, I think you mentioned it earlier, was now the engagement with your audience.
Yeah.
So on social media, you could actually have a well-trained AI agent that knows how to respond
to inbox
to people. So because it's pretty hard to respond to, I'm guessing in your case, 1,500, 5,000 people who are all writing messages in responses to whatever content you've put up.
Yeah.
But having an AI that you've obviously set the right guardrail so that it doesn't then go say something that gets you cancelled, but telling it, well, if people are saying the show is good, do X, do Y, tell them this, tell them that, tell them this.
Yeah.
And be a bit creative. Don't tell everyone the same thing. It looks like I'm copy-pasting. So you obviously give it the right instructions and the right guardrails.
Yeah.
And because it may, if it's done right, even if it's been done by an AI bot, it doesn't really take away to me in the sense of engagement.
Yeah.
I think it would take away if in 1 minute it likes all 10,000 reactions to your video.
Yeah.
Then that's suspicious. That's like you've just farmed off. You've actually farmed off your interaction to the community. But in this case, it's nitpicking. It's picking the ones which are easy to deal with, those, and then it's pushing to you.
And the ones that would actually resonate with you because it's learned you as its agent.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this needs Oscar's touch. Oscar, look at comment number 132.
That's you.
Here's a scripted response I've created for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you can tweak it, and because then that keeps you. People always one of the fears I had when I would start the podcast was if the podcast becomes so big that the episode itself and then there are comments after, and there's some form of interaction afterwards.
You have a team at that point.
But then is the team okay for me at that time in my head when I was one of the excuses I kept giving myself is, will they write authentically what I would have said? Will they have my because there's some comments I'd see and I'd be like, I need to be a bit harsh with this response.
Yeah.
Others you're like, okay,
but the way you handle a social media manager is you handle some comments by handling directly, or you handle others by leaving it, by delegating that. For me, the approach has always been comment where you can, but if you find, always comment when you can, but sometimes some responses need no comment. Like sometimes don't overstretch. I'm a big believer of even your audience will know if you're overstretching, because if you're the type of person who's always engaging, they'll always expect you to always engage.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm always like, nah, I do it organically, and that's the word organic. Like how inorganic because that's what we're doing. We're creating inorganic systems through
Yeah.
AI, how inorganic,
What's the threshold?
how much inorganic interactions can we generate before the podcast or the media product itself loses its oomph, its
Yeah.
source?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I came here because of Michael. I didn't come here because of Michael GPT.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a very interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. That's well, I guess I'm still pro-ish for the AI doing some of the engagement.
Yes.
But then I've also noticed there's a trend in theme
Yeah.
with a lot of the good AI could do for us.
Yeah.
And there's like a slight issue I've just noticed.
Yeah.
There's less and less people involved in the production, the better the AI tools get. Well, the AI tools won't be autonomous.
Okay.
They're not yet that autonomous that you pick an AI agent and you tell it, you are my co-producer. And then it's going to live that life indefinitely as long as that service is running.
Yeah.
You'll always be required to prompt and engage it. So there's always that human interaction. I can see it reducing. It can reduce the work of your social media manager. It can reduce the work of your editing team. It's not gonna replace people, and everyone is always like, "Oh, AI could replace people's jobs and everything." For now, it reduces their work.
Yeah.
Until it has that, it's able to run autonomously, and this is autonomously for a very long time. Let's say it's able to work for you for 5 years without you having to do like that. You just turned it on,
And slept.
and it's like a bulb. Unless power goes,
Yeah.
this thing is always gonna be
It's
shining.
actually better than a bulb because
Yeah.
it doesn't. You don't need to change it.
Yeah, you don't need to.
I wanted. I know we are running out of time, but I wanted to ask you, what about propaganda? How does AI handle as a podcast the question of pushing propaganda through podcasting as a channel? Because we see a lot of, because at the end of the day, podcasting is a media product.
Yes.
How does AI reinforce or protect itself against the propaganda of the hosts that are getting into the podcasting?
That's true. Actually, that reminds me of a book. I don't remember the name of the book, and it's one of the reasons why in 2019 I stopped doing a lot of coding around AI engineering.
Why?
So that I can study more philosophy, because we usually say philosophers ask the right questions. Technology is supposed to answer those questions. So I was always working in the field of the answers.
Never the questions.
What the hell are the questions? So that's why I went back there. And there's a whole book about propaganda. And you've just brought it up, and I'm like, oh, I wish I had my notes. I look at that book. Because it was... So that, well, propaganda is a tool.
Yes, it is.
It's a tool that can be used by organizations, but it's a tool that's been heavily utilized by governments.
Yes.
Its most effective users are governments. And so now you're looking at the case of free speech and the threshold for when it's not good. Because, yes, we may have free speech, and if I can use AI to create propaganda, and then I say, well, it wasn't me, the chatbot went crazy. I mean, it uploaded the episode, it used my voice to say all these things they shouldn't have said. I can claim that it went crazy, and actually, I wanted it to do that. I wanted it to bring up that topic, and I can use it as a defense. But I've already done the damage. The propaganda is out there. So now that now means we now need the more AI-delivered podcasts we have, especially on the content front, and the actual voices being used, whether they're deep fakes or they're audio reconstructions, we need a tool to check.
Whether it's a propaganda tool.
But then also, who decides the rules? That's an ethical issue.
Who will watch the watcher? That is the question, because podcasting is a very powerful thing. You create communities through your voice. If you are a charismatic individual and you are competent and you are engaged, sometimes you don't even need, you're just competent to your audience. You're able to speak to your core base. It's very easy for AI to also say, oh, but if the parameters are the views are up and people like what you're saying and people are commenting and sharing and engaging regardless of the emotional reaction, then I turn you into a propaganda tool that says some of the most hateful, deceitful propaganda.
Yeah.
But you do it for likes, shares, and views, then for the AI, it's a metric of success. No?
Yeah. it'll actually succeed.
Yeah, it said, wow, I need to make another episode that sounds like this. And
Yeah.
just continues to scrape from the same sources, from the same dark corners of the internet. And soon enough, your podcast might become the, you know, I hate to say it, the Nazi, the Nazi podium, the Nazi podium where you will, you know, achieve, you know, some of the most dark shit. But like, hopefully we'll, you know, that's now a question of AI policy that's beyond our purview as podcasters.
I think it's a question of ethics, which is even beyond policy.
It is.
I usually say we struggle with, we're always trying to wrap our hands around how we'll do ethical AI.
Yeah.
I'm like, have we even done ethical humans yet?
Yes.
As in,
Yeah.
we are like, oh, it's never ever seen that you have a problem, but then you go to the wrong place for the solution.
Exactly.
So you're in a house and there's a blackout. So you can't find your car keys.
Yeah.
So what do? You go outside under a street light to look for your car keys because that's where the light is. That's how sometimes I feel we handle ethics in AI. I'm like, can we first figure out human ethics completely to the point where we have a defined threshold as a race for certain ethics? Because ethics vary in regions, cultures, and all those things.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make one tool to be used by everyone that is going to be of such ethical fairness across the board.
Yeah.
And nothing is really fair.
Nothing is really fair.
There's even a book called The Unfair Advantage, which talks about leveraging your unfair advantage to get one up over everyone else, competitors, rivals, all those kind of things, or even just getting more success and being better. But now, that ethical question, how much propaganda is too much propaganda?
What is propaganda?
You
see, that's
for
the
example,
thing.
me saying that AI ethics should not be one of the key concerns because you haven't figured out human ethics.
Maybe that's
can be
propaganda.
spoken. Someone could be like, this is propaganda.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Like,
where do we measure?
what is it? Like,
Yeah.
there are these concepts that we've always had as human beings, right?
Yeah.
Especially around media communication,
Yeah.
ideas, and philosophy that we haven't really interrogated deeply enough as a generation to be having all this technology. Like,
This is actually an interesting conversation to have I'm part of a technical working group now that's working on, by the Media Council of Kenya, working on artificial intelligence, its use in the media space.
yeah.
I think propaganda was missed.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
Let me
Like,
go back and read to my notes.
yeah, propaganda is, if you're shout being part of that, but propaganda is something that you really need to think about as you're applying AI in media, because you might perpetuate a bias where we suddenly, for example, I know in certain tribes, there are certain beliefs that some people are kings. So now if that gets the clicks and the likes and the shares, and people are saying, who is a king? Everybody's equal here. Are you? According to the media push that's happening on these podcasts, that's what's selling.
Yeah.
Push that. According to some people, Kenya is a place where, you know, people are starving of hunger and all of us are dying. That bias will be pushed also by the same podcast.
Yeah.
So it's a slippery slope. And I suggest that, like, if ever we get to that point where we're designing podcast content or using AI in media, we have to really think about how we further any agendas outside of the host. And that's why we must be behind that. We must be like, AI has to be the co-producer, not the executive producer. It has to be, you find me the topics I want, then I'll curate and you learn.
Yeah.
Must be ethically used.
It'll find me the topics. I'll give you a bit of skeleton and meat.
Yeah.
You can flesh it out a bit more.
Yeah.
Then I'll have a look at it.
Yeah. It has to be super collaborative.
Yeah.
It has to be a back and forth.
I think if you make it completely autonomous, then one day it could do something.
Now you're a Nazi.
Yeah. Or the next minute you're there you're on Spotify, explaining how Spotify is the worst platform.
Oh my God. God forgive.
Yeah. It could literally do anything.
It could.
It could turn my podcast into a podcast about fishing.
It could. Because it gets the views.
It gets the views.
Yeah.
You guys are coming to me. So what should I use? Which is the best rod? Which is the best line? I'm like, I think you have the wrong Michael.
Yeah, it was Michael GPT. Yeah, I think we've finished the topic, have we?
Yeah, it's been, I think for me, I think the best thing I've gotten from this topic is the ability for people who would want a voice to now have a voice. I think that's again something which I feel like, that's burning a hole in my heart in a good way. Like people who have speech impairments or people who have no speech at all can now actually have a voice. They're like, I wish I could have a podcast. That's something which could come true for them.
Yeah.
I like that so much for AI. I think if it could do just that fast,
That would be incredible.
that would be incredible.
Yeah.
It would actually now, because then also increases like the value we get from podcasts, because now there's new content, there's different content. So we're exposed to more and we learn more.
Yeah.
Because there could be tens of thousands of people who have some of the best content, some of the funniest, some of the most curious, some of the most mind-challenging questions. And we are missing out because they do not have the capacity. But now with AI, they will literally have a voice. And even if it means creating a voice that maybe you find out this particular voice keeps people listening for longer.
Yeah.
So change your voice to be this way and this way. You're leveraging the system. As long as the content is yours and you're getting it out there, I'm like, go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
If I'm told I need a female host and I can't find a female host, AI can help me get a female host.
Natasha AI.
Natasha AI, welcome to Mind and Machine.
Mind and machine. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dope. In summary, I'm excited for us to come in, and it was a good topic to choose, and I think there's a lot to think on, and I think there's a lot of research I need to read about.
Yeah.
What this podcast has really done is the recording that I've had with every recording I have with you now makes me think. So shout out to Mind and Machine. My mind will definitely need to study more about the future, especially in this field that we're in and what we've been working on so far.
Thank you for coming on as a guest, and even just for coming up with the topic.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Always.
Always a pleasure to have you.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And look out for more episodes coming out soon.
Bye.